Maybe the most prominent narrative over the opening 2 weeks of this NBA season was that the Denver Nuggets were cooked. They had lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in the offseason, a crucial starter in their 2023 title run, forcing Christian Braun to step into a starting role and leaving them with a bench many believed would be one of the worst in basketball. Those beliefs only seemed to be affirmed when Russell Westbrook, their controversial key bench signing, was shooting just 24% 5 games into the season. And with KCP gone, shooting was more of a question than ever for a team that already ranked last in the sport in three-pointers attempted last season. The Nuggets were easily handled by the Thunder in their season opener, then had to come back for overtime wins over the lowly Raptors and Nets to crawl back to 2-2, at which point they lost an already struggling Jamal Murray to injury, and then, 2 games later, lost Aaron Gordon as well. The season seemed to be off to a nightmarish start. But as all this panic swirled around the Nuggets, I tried to remind everyone that although certain aspects of the start were concerning, they have the best player on the planet, and we should never underestimate what Nikola Jokic is capable of. Now, facing absurdly difficult circumstances down his second and third best players, Jokic has delivered on his reputation, dragging Denver to a 5-3 start and 3 straight wins without Murray, 2 of which also came without Gordon, the most recent of which came against the previously undefeated Thunder. And while numerous Nuggets have stepped up their play in the last couple games for the shorthanded squad, it is Jokic who is driving all their success and making the unfathomable look routine night after night. Jokic is currently averaging 29 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 11 assists per game on better than 63% true shooting, having taken over as the league leader in both rebounds and assists in the OKC rematch, in which he put up a ludicrous 23-20-16 stat line. Jokic did that against the best defense in the league. The Thunder boast a ridiculous 96 defensive rating, which is 7 points better than anyone else. They have one of the league's best rim protectors, Chet Holmgren, but also overwhelming speed and length around him on the perimeter, which has made them a chaos machine for opposing offenses as they're forcing over 20 turnovers per game. In their first meeting, OKC held Denver to just 87 points and doubled Jokic like hell, working to make every catch extremely difficult for him, to challenge every pass, and use their speed to quickly rotate over to Jokic's teammates and ultimately make anyone else beat them, which they couldn't. So, take Murray and Gordon out of the equation, injecting Westbrook and Peyton Watson into the starting lineup, 2 bad shooters, and of course, OKC would be every bit as aggressive doubling Jokic, if not more so, in the rematch. But Jokic was masterful in his dissection of these double teams. Here, Caruso helps off of MPJ 1 pass away, and nobody rotates to cover the best 3-point shooter on the floor, who Jokic is never going to miss. So 1 minute later, SGA is sure to rotate over to MPJ when the double comes, leaving a lane for a cutting Christian Braun, who Jokic finds instantly. Here, it's the low man who steps up to double Jokic off the catch, but he's unbothered and dots up the cutter. It's just systematic, flawless execution against the most disruptive defense in the league over and over again all night. By the way, Jokic is seeing hard double teams on 43% of his post-ups this season. For reference, that number was at 30% for him last year and 34% for Embiid. 43% is insane. I want to give props to Russ and MPJ and Brown for some good shooting and finishing in this game, but remarkably, on top of his 16 assists, Jokic had another 5 passes that led directly to free throws for his teammates getting fouled at the rim. So the assist number doesn't even fully reflect his monstrous playmaking impact in that game. It's hard to overstate how single-handedly responsible Jokic has been for creating good offense for the Nuggets. He touched the ball a mind-boggling 132 times in the OKC rematch, and he's averaging 114 touches this season, 13 more than last year, when he led the league for the 6th straight season and set a record for most touches per game since the stat began being tracked over a decade ago. With no real ball handlers on the floor outside of Russ, and with questionable shooting all around, the offensive burden on Jokic right now is unmatched league-wide, and he is delivering. Between his own scoring and assists, Jokic is creating 58.3 points per game right now, over 8 points more than anyone else in basketball, and his true shooting percentage is also more than 8 points higher than the second and third ranked players in terms of total points created, Trae Young and Luka Doncic. So while Jokic's raw production is monstrous, what puts him in a tier of his own remains his efficiency. Jokic's efficiency is evident in the fact that he's shooting over 53% from the field, better than 51% from deep, and 80% from the line, but it goes beyond his outstanding shooting percentages. Jokic's efficiency is also reflected in the very nature of his touches. He draws two defenders in the post and immediately dots up the cutter. Isaiah Joe turns his back to the inbounder to get eyes on Jokic, and he instantly zips this to a cutting Brown, who draws a foul. I mentioned how Jokic leads the league in touches by far, but in terms of time spent possessing the ball per game, he ranks just 26th. This is economical basketball. Creating advantages, seeing things others don't, making decisions before the defense can react, and taking what they give you expeditiously. Nothing is wasted. And I still think some people don't grasp the full, unrivaled impact Jokic has with his playstyle. Look at what he's doing with his two best teammates both out and two players from maybe the most maligned bench unit in basketball, therefore starting. The Nuggets this season have an offensive rating of 126 with Jokic on the floor, several points better than the league's #1 offense, and an offensive rating of 87 with Jokic off the floor, just 15 points worse than the league's worst offense. Just to do some quick math for you all, the Nuggets offense has been 39 points per 100 possessions better with Jokic on the floor. And accounting for the absence of two of their best players, the Nuggets have a 123 offensive rating with Jokic on the floor and Gordon off, and a 121 offensive rating with Jokic on and Murray off. He is producing best in the league caliber offense no matter who's out there with him. So, does inferior supporting talent demand that your best player be more involved than ever and more aggressive as a scorer? Yes, it does. But does it mean, like some would tell you, that in those circumstances, the best option is to have your best player dominating the shit out of the ball, playing in an offense without movement or flow as everybody watches him jack up shots? Clearly not. The way Jokic plays offense is ideal no matter what. He has proven in all sorts of circumstances, with only slight adjustments to his play style, that he is the greatest offensive hub in NBA history. In 2022, with both Jamal Murray and MPJ out for the season, Jokic did probably the greatest offensive floor-raising job we've ever seen. Then, the following season, with a much better supporting cast, he put together, in my opinion, the greatest offensive postseason ever in a title run. And now, in absurdly difficult circumstances, he's putting up his most ludicrous numbers yet. And those numbers include a career high in regular season points per game. Jokic is the only player with multiple 40-point games this season, and he continues to affirm that nobody is harder to stop in single coverage when he decides he's going to score, which has been especially apparent in clutch situations. Jokic is tied with KD for the most total clutch points, and he has a ridiculous true shooting percentage of 68.5 in clutch situations. We saw this in the final minute against the Nets. When the Nuggets needed a bucket most, Jokic went to work on an island on back-to-back possessions and got them their easiest points of the night to send the game to OT. Just one day prior, we saw the same thing. Denver was down 8 with under a minute and a half left, so they go to Jokic in the post, who spins and scores over a mismatch, then puts Poeltl in the spin cycle, and now the lead is down to 4. Then you need a quick 2, and he effortlessly bullies his way to a short running hook. Some of these are mismatches, sure, but we've seen time and again that Jokic's combination of overwhelming strength, mastery of fakes and footwork, and the best paint touch we've ever seen creates the most unstoppable go-to offense in basketball. Jokic is also having an absurd jump shooting season. If you heard me say he's shooting 51% from deep earlier and thought that must have been one of my classic pranks, it's not. That's real. Jokic is currently averaging over 1.4 points per jump shot. Of course, that number isn't sustainable. Steph Curry didn't even do that in 2016, but it's very encouraging for Jokic considering his slump from beyond the arc last postseason. And Jokic isn't just draining his jumpers, he's attempting a career-high 4.4 triples per game, and especially in the Clippers game when he made 7 threes, has shown a willingness to pull off movement and from the corners. And his confidence there is important because three-point shooting was basically the difference between his 2023 and 2024 postseasons. The one area Jokic hasn't been at his best, along with turnovers, he's averaging 4 a game, which isn't shocking when you're touching the ball 115 times and getting double teamed at the rate Jokic is, but some of them have been preventable, has actually been his paint touch. Jokic is the inarguable GOAT when it comes to touch on floaters and hooks. He shot 62% in the paint outside the restricted area last year and consistently clears 60%, but he's been at just 52% early this year. He's also shooting under 61% in the restricted area, while he's cleared 70% in each of the last 4 seasons. But here's what's crazy. Nobody in basketball is better at rebounding their own misses and scoring off putbacks than Jokic. Including fouls drawn, he's already done it 11 times this season. So that means on 15% of all Jokic's misses, he immediately scores a putback anyways. So if we consider the miss and the putback one scoring attempt, which for all intents and purposes they are, Jokic's effective true shooting percentage jumps to 67.2. And if we give everybody else that same adjustment, counting putbacks off their own misses as one scoring attempt, Jokic is second among the top 25 scoring leaders in effective true shooting percentage, behind, and you all saw this coming, Norman Powell. So even with his usual mind-bending paint touch being a bit off, and even with this absurd burden on a severely shorthanded offense, Jokic's efficiency is unmatched by any of the league's premier scorers. And by the way, just as Jokic's three-point shot will come back to earth, his paint efficiency numbers will return to their usual meteoric heights. That's not something to be worried about. What Jokic is doing is just stupid. It feels like it goes without saying, there's no precedent for this stuff. Nobody's ever led the league in both rebounds and assists, and they've certainly never done it while scoring 29 points per game on elite efficiency while improving their team's offense by 40 points per 100 possessions. There's a long way to go this season, but even as so many said it would be impossible for Jokic to win a 4th MVP because of voter fatigue, right now, it wouldn't even be a conversation. The gap between Jokic and everybody else in basketball right now is large, and he just continues to make that clearer. There's a strong case that he is the best scorer, rebounder, and passer in the league today. This is, without a doubt, one of the 10 highest peaks we've ever seen in this sport, and as long as Nikola Jokic is on the floor, nothing is truly impossible.